Welcome to Beaded Doilies by Shell. In the first video for these faceted bead art squares, I showed you how to connect your squares together and how to create a banner with your squares. In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete your cube. I also created here an earring with seed beads. I'm also going to show you how to add an accessory. Also, if you want to make it into an ornament for the tree or something, I'm going to show you some options for that. And I'm also going to show you, in case you want to connect them together and do a string of them. If you use tiny seed beads, you could make a bracelet or dangly earrings. There's lots of options. You could also just make a banner with them. But for this video, we will start with adding the top and bottom. Now for me, the top is going to be the E and the bottom is going to be the F. So if you plan to connect multiple and you need to connect this to another one from the bottom as well as the top, you'll want to consider which corner you want your F to connect to the other, and you would start at that corner. I'm not going to connect the bottom, so I can pretty much start at any corner. Now for me, I want the F so that when I am on A, I turn it, the F is correct. So I want my piece to lay this way. And get my string. We will go through the second and third. When you start, it's just like when you're just connecting two together. You'll go through the second and third bead. And as I'm connecting to this side, I am going to be using blue. So we already have blue here, so we will start with yellow on the bottom. And I am using the background colors for these to connect them. Now we want to go through the second and third on this square. And we will cross with a blue. Get to it. There we go. Oops. There we are. And there we have our first connecting. Now we'll go through the next two side beads on both squares. Bring our strings together and make sure at this point we want to make sure to keep them the same length. And we're going to cross with a yellow. Then we'll go through the next two side beads. And then we'll cross with a blue. Oops, that's a green. And now we've come to the corner. So what you want to do is you want to go through 1, 2, 3 beads. You want to go from the corner of the previous square on your connected pieces to the corner of the other one. So you'll go through this corner then the bead between the two, and then you'll come out this corner, and on the other side you will just go through that corner. And now you want to start, as you started over here with yellow, you will start with yellow here as well. And now we'll go through 2 side beads on each square that we're now connecting. So we go through 1, 2, and then this one we go through 1, 2. And now we're rotating with the white, so the next color we're going to need is white. And for this one, as you can see, I made it simple. I did all of the connecting one color, which is different from the design that I used in the piece. So you can do it any way that you want, and with your first one you might want to take that idea and just use the same color for the connecting bead. And here we're going through the next 2 side beads on the sides of our squares, and then I'm going to use a yellow connecting bead. And then the next 2 side beads. And we're going to use a white to connect them. And now we're at the corner again, so we're going to go through 3 beads, the corner, the center bead, and the corner. So, corner bead, we could also call this the connecting bead, and the other square's corner bead. Then we go through the corner bead on the one we're attaching, and we'll start again with the lighter color yellow, because as you can see this one is also yellow, so we have 2 color yellows for this part. So we want the lighter color yellow. And go through the 2 side beads. And then the side beads on the one you're connecting. And now we're going to cross with a darker yellow bead. And then the next 2 side beads, and yes, it gets a little more difficult to hold the piece the way you want it, but it is relatively doable. Just have to work with it until you find a way that works best for you. And don't worry if the previous ones come loose. At the end it'll all tighten up just fine. And we'll end this side with a darker yellow. And now we're at the next corner. So again, we will go through corner bead, connecting, and corner bead. And then we will go through the corner bead of the one we're connecting. And we'll start with the light yellow. Go through our two side beads. Now we'll cross with a purple. And go through the next two side beads. Then we'll do light yellow. And now cross with a purple. And now we'll go around to this connecting bead here. So we're going to go through, this one is going to go through the corner, the corner, and then the connecting. And then I'm going to put my knot in this one here, because if I were to do a hang, this would be a nice side because it shows the A and B nicely. We're doing a double overhand. Now don't pull tight, just bring it down, and we're going to slip it inside of this bead here. And now we'll pull tight. Now if you wanted to do an ornament at this point, you could just take this up and tie it just like this if you wanted to, and then you could have that to hang it on the tree or somewhere in the house. And I'll show you on the other. Now this I'm going to leave because if you were to want to like connect them together, I don't recommend you do that until you completely finish your square. Now I have to admit I made a mistake. I had planned this to be the bottom and it is now the top because it's on top of the A. So I'm now going to put this one on the bottom, and I want it so that when I'm on the A, I turn it, I see the E, and just the same with the F. So I'm going to put it this direction, so I'll lay it down so I have it the correct direction. And then I'll need a new string. Now I'm using about 3 feet of string for connecting the top and bottom onto, and it also then gives you enough for if you want to connect them together or something like that. So what I'm going to do is because I want to show you, I will say I'm going to use this corner here so that the E will hang diagonally like this. So I'm going to start on this corner. So I will go through the next 2 side beads next to the corner I want to end on, and then making sure I have it correct, connect it to, because I'm doing the top of the E, I'm going to connect it to the bottom of the A. So I'll go through the 2 side beads, the second and third one on the A. I did forget one thing, sorry about that. I need to add a bead first. So I look here, I see that the A's background color is the next one here, so I'm going to use the E's background color first. And then I want to go through the second and third side bead on the bottom of the A. And I'll bring my 2 ends together, and I'm going to cross with the A background color, which is purple. And now we've begun adding the bottom, and the string from the other side may get in the way. If you're not planning on connecting it or adding accessories, then I do recommend that you thread back and then trim them off. But otherwise, as one might say, they are a necessary evil. Just work around them. Now we've gone through the next 2 side beads on our 2 squares that we are currently connecting, and we are going to add our next color, which we'll now use the light green. And at this point you do want to try and make sure that your strings stay about the same length. If you need to, you can pull your partsies and make your strings the same length that way. And then we'll go through the next 2 side beads. And we will cross with the purple. And again, we're at a corner, so we're going to go through the corner bead, the connecting bead, and the corner bead of the next square. And then we'll go through the corner bead of the square we're connecting, and we will cross with a connecting bead. This time it'll be the light green. And now we'll go through the next 2 side beads. Now, let's see here. If I were to want to connect these two on both sides, I would have started at the opposite corner, because then you would want to connect going opposite. But I'm not planning to do that with this one, so I'm going to leave it as it is. See, I went through both of my 2 sides. Now I'll add my connecting bead. This time I need a dark yellow. So there is a little bit of thought you want to put into adding your last 2 squares onto your cube, depending on what it is you are planning to use your cube for. And if you do happen to connect or end at the wrong corner, that's not a problem really either, because you can always just tie off, string back, clip off the excess, and then just get a string long enough to connect on the side, the corner you actually want to connect on. So even if you end in the wrong corner, that's not a big deal. Now we need a dark yellow. Now we're at the corners, so we're going to go through corner, connector, and then the corner of our new square we're going to be connecting to. And then we go through the corner of the square we're adding. And we will start with the light green. Go through the 2 side beads on each square. And this time we're going to cross with white. And now we'll go through the next 2 side beads. Now, as I am doing a video, I permitted the top and bottom to be backwards, but before you tie off, when you finish adding a square, or even while you're adding it, you might check to make sure that you did add it to the side you want to add it to, and that it's lining up with the other squares the way that you want it to line up with the other squares. That way, if it's not, you can easily take it right off and start over, adjusting it as you see that it would best match up with your cube. Something like this, I used patterns, which I'll show you now. that would be the same no matter what direction they're on. And I do have several patterns like this, as you can see. And those ones will be a lot easier because you won't have to worry about which direction the squares are laying. I do have these patterns listed at these two websites, so feel free to go and check them out and use any of them that you would like. I'm ready to add my connecting, and I shall use white. And another nifty thing is if you wanted to try to do a bracelet with the small seed beads, is you could do a square using one letter, and then you could spell out a name or a message or something like that, which would be nifty and neat. Alright, now we need a light green. And we'll go through our two side beads. And we'll cross with a blue. Now a green. And then the last bead we're going to add is a blue. And then we're going to go through our corner beads, and we want to end here. So I'm actually going to leave this one right here because I want to end on this bead for the next step. So we'll go all the way around with this string. And then we'll tie our knot. Remember, you do a regular knot, and then you do a double overhand. Don't pull tight, just bring it down. Then you find the bead you're ending on, which is this corner bead of the one we added. Slip your thread inside of it. And then push your knot inside and pull tight. Alright, now, actually this is kind of nifty too if you wanted to make it so that your cubes hung down like this next to each other. That actually would be rather nifty as well. But you'd want to consider which way your squares are laying. It's always good to think ahead of how you want your piece to hang or connect together before actually creating it. That way you have an idea of how to lay out the pieces. Now, I'm going to show you what I would do to connect from one piece to another or one piece to an accessory. And what I do is I put two beads on each string. And then for an accessory, I would add it, or I would actually cross, here's something. I would actually cross through the accessory from each side. And then go back through. Oops, this accessory is a little too big. Lay it so that it's the way I need it. Bead needs to go back in there. Okay. And then I would go back through the opposite beads with the opposite string. Oops, I grabbed the wrong string. Here we go. And bring them down. And then I'd go back through my corner bead, crossing both strings through it. And that will add you an accessory. And then you'd want to tie off. I might thread a little further over and then tie off and then thread back. So that adds you an accessory. Now we'll take that off. Good and tight on there. And for connecting two together, again, I would add 2 beads to each string. And actually, if you want a little space between, you could add more than 2 beads, or you could do the doily stitch where you add 2 and then cross, and then you could add 2, and depending on how far apart you want the 2, you would keep going until you have the length you need. And then you'd add the last 2, and then you go through the corner that you want to connect to on your other piece. And bring that together, and you can have a little space between them if you wanted to. So that's an option as well. And then of course you would tie off. Well, here, let's go ahead and do that. We'll bring our strings around so they're in the same place. Alright, now both our strings are together, so we'll make a knot. And then we'll make a double overhand knot. And then we will slip it inside of one of the beads next to where the knot is. And then we'll work our knot inside the bead and then pull tight. And then, as I always do, I thread back what I call 2 center beads. That'll be the beads I will be crossing with both strings. So that is 1 center bead for that string. And then we work this string around to where our center bead is. And there, both our strings are coming through the first center bead. Then we work our way to the second one. A little harder to do on a cube than on a flat piece, but it is maneuverable. to take your corners and pull out any cave-ins. Cave-ins aren't too bad usually with this small a square. If you were to do larger pieces and sew them together, then you might want to add some support inside. And there we have two cubes, and they are connected together. And you can also do an earring if you'd like. And the seed beads don't work well with the faceted bead art stitch every time. It actually kind of tilts a little. I have that in my cross stitch video. But with these small squares and connecting them together, as you can see, the seed beads did work well. So if you're working with the small squares that I have available, the faceted bead art small squares, you will be able to make a cube even with the seed beads. And I hope that you make lots of cubes and have lots of fun. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Happy beading!